I'm Lois and welcome to my Lois channel on YouTube. This is the second of a series of videos that I'm doing showing how I apply makeup as a totally blind person. I'm going to start this off by saying I'm not a professional, I'm not a beautician. This is just the ways that I've learned over the years that I've been blind that work for me. And I thought I wanted to share them to show people who are sighted about how I accomplish everyday tasks, but also to try and give a little more detail as I go, just through my words, to help other blind people to learn about some techniques that might help them in their lives. So the first video that we did was showing my preparation of the foundations that I do, putting base or foundation, putting blusher, and a translucent powder. And we've already done that, and this is now the second video where I'm going to be showing how I apply eye color or eyeshadow. Now I use powders rather than liquids or ointments. I just find it works for me. The first thing that I want to say is about the selection of colors, because so often if you go and you ask a professional, the obvious thing is that you're going to use one range of colors, but here's the thing. They most often come in applicators that look exactly the same, and that makes it harder for someone who's blind or visually impaired to tell them apart. And yes, there was one instance where I know that I went out with my makeup on backwards. So I try to get individual colors in their own individual boxes, and then different ranges or different brands, so that I can tell just by picking up the box which color is which. So let me just give you an idea of that. Here is what I'm using today, and no, I'm not endorsing any brand particularly. I am not followed by any brand. I'm not paid by them, but there are two colors that come in the same applicator, but they're different colors. So I could put those on incorrectly and make a mess. What I did in that case is the lighter color is just normal. It's the plain box. The other color, which is a slightly darker color, I've actually etched into the lid. I don't know if you can hear it, using a sharp knife so that I can feel tactilely, I can feel the difference. You could also apply a bump dot or something like that to one of the colors. You've just got to remember which color it is that has the bump dot on it when you're applying the makeup. Okay, so I am going to use that color today. The first thing is I take the lightest color that I have, and I rub my finger across the powder lightly to pick up a bit of the color on the tip of my finger. I use a single finger, and then I put it onto my eyelid and just rub it across, and the color comes off my fingertip onto the eyelid. With a light color, I apply it right the way across under my eyebrow and above my eye. I apply it across to the end of my eye above, so that it's going from the tip of my eyebrow down to the edge, the outside tip of my eye. So let me just repeat that statement. The outside end of my eyebrow to the outside edge of my eye. And all the area above that. So I'm using the eye and the eyebrow as a way of gauging where I must stop applying. So there's almost an unseen line for me that goes between the two, and there's one there on the outside and one there on the inside. And within that, I just fill in with the lightest color from the eye to the eyebrow, right the way across that area, both on the left hand hand side and on the right hand side. And just to be clear, remember to close your eyes when you do that. Now, if I am applying makeup just during the day, I will only use that first step and the third step if I'm applying makeup for myself to go out in the evening or late afternoon or at night. I will put on a second step, which I'll show you now. So that is where I take a slightly darker color that matches with that light color, and I apply it not across that whole area, but just on the eyelid itself, over the eye. I don't go up into the area closer to the eyebrow. And I'm just putting a little bit again onto the tip of a finger, same finger is fine, over the bottom half of the eyelid within those same parameters. So within that line from the outside of my eye to the outside of the eyebrow, and the inside of the eyebrow to the inside of the eye closest to the nose. Not to the inside of the eye, but above the eye, that is, just to be clear. I don't want you putting the eye makeup into your eye. That could hurt. And then the same on the right. So that's a second eye color, which is slightly darker than the first and is applied to the lower half of the eyelid. The third color which I'm putting on is the darkest color that I use. Again, it is one that will match the other two. And this is the first time that I start using a makeup brush. And the reason is that this is a smaller amount of makeup, a smaller area that I'm applying it to, and the brush helps to keep it neater. So I have a makeup brush that, again, I took advice from a professional. It's a very narrow brush. It's about a centimeter wide. It's a flat brush. If you buy eyeshadow, you normally get an applicator in there with the shadow, the eye color, and you can use that as well. This just happens to be one that I have used for many, many years. Okay, so I've got a very small amount of the darkest color, and now I'm going to apply a small dab of that color on the very outside of the lower half of the eyelid. So it literally is just a splotch and about just 2 millimeters in towards the center of the nose area, but I'm applying it right on the outside of the eye, so closest to the hairline. Okay, and that's a tiny bit there on the right and a tiny bit on the left. I'm just reapplying a bit more to the brush, and now I'm going into the crease between the lower and upper halves of my eyelid. So the space about halfway between the eyelashes and the eyebrow. And I'm going very gently with the edge of the brush to apply halfway across towards my nose, which means that I'm applying from the outside of the eye nearest the hairline to about halfway across the eye, aiming towards the nose, and a very narrow line just in the crease between the upper and lower halves of the eyelid. Okay, and that's all I do with my dark colors. Next, I'm going to be applying an eyeliner. I tried a liquid eyeliner and it really didn't work for me. It became way too messy, way too hard for me to manage. Now, I know a lot of people use them, a lot of blind people use them, and they find them fantastic. You must find what works for you. I'm going to, I have an eyeliner pencil. I also have one that I can turn the bottom and a bit more comes out. I don't like the pure pencils because I find them almost impossible to sharpen. where these ones, the revolving ones, the rotating ones, you turn the bottom of the pencil and a little bit more comes out the top. I don't know what their formal name is. I know there's a word that I can't find at the moment, but I find these are the best. Okay, so I'm putting it now up just above the eyelashes. Very light application, don't push too hard, and I start on the outer edges of my eye and then go across just above the eyelashes, across the eye inwards towards the nose. And I'm going to show those of you who are sighted. Close my eye, put it on the outside of my eye, and just very lightly, very slowly apply a line of eyeliner. A lot of what I'm doing is tactile. I need to find where I start from by touching with either the eyeliner or with the tip of my finger, and I use that as a marker from which I then lightly apply the eyeliner. So that is applying the colors, and then the final thing that I do, because I know that sometimes I color outside the lines when I'm putting my eye colors on, I use a thicker brush, which is about 1 inch across, but it comes to a slight point. I use that brush to lightly blend the colors slightly together. And that's a much more forgiving way, so that the colors don't look stark and very distinct from each other. It just blends them a little bit together. And I just do tiny circles with that brush across the entire eyelid. It removes any excess color, and it just, as I say, blends the colors together to give the best effect. Now, this is one thing that my husband, who was a great help to me, he often reminds me that when I'm applying eye makeup, because I can't tell how much color I'm putting on, that it often lands up falling below my eyes, just to the underside of the eye or above the cheekbones. So I don't have one with me today, but I usually take a small swab of material or a piece of cotton wool. I'm not certain what the American term for cotton wool is, and I just wipe that away so that the color, any color that has then fallen as I've been applying it and fallen onto my face, is removed so that it does not smudge and look peculiar. So that then is how I apply my eye color, my eye makeup. I've applied the light color first, then a slightly darker color, which I would use in afternoon or evening, and then my darkest color on the very outsides of the eyelids in a small triangular shape. Let's have a talk quickly about selection of colors. I personally tend to ask for assistance when I go to a shop where I buy my makeup, and I ask the assistants there to help me find colors that will work with my skin tone. And I usually, as I'm finishing an eye color, I take it with me to the shop and I say, this is what I have been using. I'm looking for something similar to that. I can't give you any recommendations on what color to use. I don't know what your skin tone is like, your skin color. And that is really important to get sighted assistance. I tend to go for a fairly natural look, using colors that work with my skin tone, but are not particularly, they don't show up. So I will use a lot of browns, golds, ivories, that type of colors, because it works for me. You can have a lot of fun. There are so many different colors that are available, but I really would ask for advice because, well, I have made some catastrophic mistakes selecting colors in the past. And as I've said, I did land up once putting my makeup on backwards. So the light color that I applied first over the eyelid, instead of doing that, I put the dark color, that dark chocolate brown, across my eyelids and then tried to put a little dot of the ivory on the outsides. I can't even begin to think about what it must have looked like. Okay, so that's the end of the second video about applying makeup, how I do it. Like I've said, I'm not a professional. This is just tools and techniques that I've found that work for me and I hope might be useful to you if you are also visually impaired. If you enjoyed learning a little bit about how I accomplish something, every day as a person who's blind, please subscribe to the channel. If you're someone who's visually impaired and you found this useful, check out other videos that I've got on the channel, and also it would be great if you could subscribe. As always, like, share, comment. Any engagement on these videos really helps other people to see them too. In the third video, we're going to be applying lip color. Great. We'll see you then.